Welcome back to our channel Historic Coin Treasures, where we uncover hidden coin rare discoveries and the real stories behind historic currency. If you love history, treasure, and the possibility of life-changing finds, subscribe now and let's discover the next hidden fortune together. Top 1. Today we are exploring one of the most fascinating coins that collectors continue to search for in pocket change jars and old collections across the country. This is the story of the United States' most valuable and mysterious dime from the year 1965. The year 1965 was a historic turning point for American coinage. During this time, the United States was facing a serious silver shortage. For decades, dimes were made with 90% silver, but rising silver prices forced the government to change the metal composition of coins. Because of this change, the United States Mint began producing dimes using a new copper-nickel clad composition instead of silver. This decision created one of the most interesting transitions in the history of American coins. The design of the dime remained the same, still featuring the iconic portrait of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, but the metal inside the coin had changed completely. Millions of these new clad dimes were produced, and most people believed they were just ordinary coins worth only 10 cents. But collectors know that sometimes history creates rare mistakes, and those mistakes can turn a simple dime into something extremely valuable. The 1965 Roosevelt Dime is part of a series first introduced in 1946 to honor President Roosevelt after his passing. Roosevelt was admired for his leadership during difficult times in American history, and also for his support of the March of Dimes campaign, which fought against polio. Because of this connection, the Roosevelt portrait became the symbol of the American dime. When the 1965 dime was introduced, it was produced in enormous numbers. The United States Mint struck billions of dimes during that period because the country needed coins quickly after the metal change. However, during such massive production, rare minting errors occasionally occurred. One of the most fascinating possibilities is the accidental creation of a 1965 dime struck on a leftover silver planchet. Remember that before 1965 dimes were made from 90% silver. When the mint switched to clad metal, a few leftover silver blanks may still have remained in the machines. If a 1965 Roosevelt dime was struck on one of those silver planchets, it would instantly become one of the rarest transitional error coins in American numismatic history. Collectors can sometimes identify this rare version by its weight and color. A normal 1965 clad dime weighs about 2.27 grams. A silver version would weigh slightly more and would show the bright silver edge without the copper stripe that appears on modern clad coins. Finding such a coin would be like discovering hidden treasure. Another exciting error collectors search for is the off-center strike. During the minting process, a blank coin must be perfectly positioned before the design is struck. If the blank moves slightly, the design may appear partially missing or shifted to one side. These off-center dimes can be very collectible depending on how dramatic the error is. There are also double die varieties where the design appears slightly doubled due to a mistake during the creation of the coin die. When light hits the coin, you might notice extra outlines on the letters or numbers. These subtle details are extremely exciting for collectors who love studying coins under magnification. Clipped planchet errors are another possibility. In this case, the metal blank was improperly cut before striking, leaving a curved missing section on the coin. Even though the coin looks damaged, it was actually created this way during the minting process, which makes it desirable for collectors who specialize in mint errors. Because billions of 1965 dimes were produced, most examples are very common and circulate every day without anyone noticing them. However, the possibility of rare errors keeps collectors searching through rolls of coins and old jars, hoping to discover something extraordinary. Many collectors enjoy the thrill of coin roll hunting, where they obtain rolls of coins from banks and carefully examine each one. A simple dime might suddenly reveal unusual characteristics that make it worth far more than its face value. The excitement comes from the idea that rare coins sometimes hide in the most ordinary places. Old piggy banks, inherited coin collections, forgotten drawers, and even pocket change can sometimes hold surprising discoveries. Another factor that makes a coin valuable is its condition. Coins that have never been used in circulation often retain their original mint luster and sharp details. These are known as uncirculated coins. Collectors are willing to pay much higher prices for coins that appear almost exactly as they did when they left the mint. A 1965 dime in average circulated condition usually looks worn and dull from years of use. But if a collector finds one with bright luster and sharp details, it becomes much more desirable. Professional grading companies examine coins carefully and assign them a grade that reflects their condition. The higher the grade, the more valuable the coin can become. Some collectors focus only on rare era coins while others collect complete sets of Roosevelt dimes from every year. For these collectors, even common coins play an important role in completing a historical collection. The 1965 dime represents a unique moment in American history when the nation changed the composition of its coins. This transition created opportunities for rare minting mistakes and fascinating collectibles that continue to excite coin enthusiasts today. Imagine the thrill of discovering that a small dime in your collection might actually be a rare transitional era coin. It could have been sitting unnoticed for decades waiting for someone to recognize its true value. This is why experienced collectors always examine coins closely. They check the edge, the weight, the shine of the metal, and even the smallest details of the design. Every coin tells a story about the time it was created, the technology used to produce it, and the journey it took through history. The Roosevelt dime from 1965 may look simple at first glance, but it carries the legacy of a major change in American coinage and the possibility of rare and valuable errors. Many collectors say the beauty of coin collecting is that anyone can participate. You do not need expensive equipment or rare coins to start. Sometimes all it takes is curiosity and a careful look at the coins already in your pocket. Who knows what hidden treasures might be waiting to be discovered? And now let us talk about the value of the 1965 Roosevelt dime. That a normal circulated 1965 dime usually has a real market value of around 10 cents to 50 cents depending on its condition. A high-grade uncirculated example can reach a value of around $20 to $40 in the collector's market. Top 2. Today we are exploring one of the most interesting coins that many people overlook, the United States 1978 Roosevelt dime. At first glance it looks like an ordinary 10-cent coin, something millions of people used in everyday transactions during the late 1970s. But for collectors and coin lovers, this small piece of metal can sometimes become a treasure worth far more than its face value. The story of this coin begins with the famous American President Franklin D. Roosevelt, whose portrait appears on the front of the Roosevelt dime. The coin design was introduced in 1946 to honor Roosevelt's leadership and his support for the March of Dimes campaign against polio. Since then, billions of dimes have been produced, yet every year of minting holds its own secrets for collectors. By the time the year 1978 arrived, the United States Mint had already produced Roosevelt dimes for more than 3 decades. The coin was made from a copper-nickel clad composition instead of silver, which had been removed from circulating dimes in 1965. Even though the metal was common, the minting process still produced coins that collectors examine very carefully today. On the front side of the 1978 dime, you see the calm and determined portrait of Roosevelt facing left. Around the portrait are the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," along with the date 1978. The backside of the coin features a torch symbolizing liberty, with an olive branch representing peace and an oak branch representing strength. This classic design has remained almost unchanged for decades and is instantly recognizable to coin collectors around the world. Most 1978 dimes were produced for everyday circulation. Millions were minted in the city of Philadelphia Mint without a mint mark, and many more were struck at the Denver Mint with a small D mint mark. Because such large numbers were produced, the majority of these coins are worth only their face value when found in worn condition. However, coin collectors know that the real excitement begins when unusual details appear. A perfectly preserved coin, especially one that has never been used in circulation, can become much more desirable. These high-grade examples often come directly from mint sets that were saved by collectors for decades. When a 1978 dime is found with sharp details, strong luster, and almost no marks, collectors call it a mint state coin. Coins in extremely high grades can attract significant attention during auctions. But the most thrilling discoveries are error coins. During the minting process, tiny mistakes sometimes occur, creating coins that look different from the standard design. These errors are rare and collectors often search rolls of coins hoping to find 1.1 example is an off-center strike. This happens when the blank coin planchet is not perfectly aligned in the press during striking. The design ends up shifted toward one side, leaving a blank crescent area on the coin. Off-center dimes from 1978 are not common, and the larger the shift in the design, the more collectors become interested. Another fascinating error is a double die variety. In this situation, the design elements appear slightly doubled, especially in the lettering or numbers of the date. To the naked eye, it may look like a shadow around the letters. Under magnification, the doubling becomes clearer, and collectors become very excited when they find such coins because they represent a unique stage in the minting process. Clipped planchet errors can also occur. This happens before the coin is struck when the metal sheet used to create blanks overlaps slightly with the cutting tool. The result is a coin with a curved missing section on its edge. Although unusual, these clipped coins are authentic mint errors and collectors appreciate them because they show exactly how coins were manufactured. Some 1978 dimes also display dramatic die cracks. Over time, the dies used to strike coins can develop small fractures from repeated pressure. When this happens, thin raised lines appear on the coin where metal flows into the crack. Certain collectors actually specialize in finding these die varieties because each crack pattern is slightly different. What makes this hobby exciting is the possibility that valuable coins might still be hiding in ordinary places. Many collectors search through old coin jars, bank rolls, and inherited collections hoping to find a rare example that others overlooked. Even though most 1978 dimes are common, the thrill of discovery keeps people searching. Condition plays a huge role in determining value. A worn coin that traveled through thousands of hands will not attract much interest from collectors. But a brilliant coin with full mint luster and no visible wear can become surprisingly valuable, especially if it grades extremely high on the professional coin grading scale. Professional grading services carefully evaluate coins and assign them a numeric grade. Coins graded near the top of the scale are extremely rare because very few coins survive decades without scratches or contact marks. That is why collectors compete fiercely for the finest known examples of common dates like the 1978 dime. Another factor that increases interest is proof coinage. Proof coins are specially struck for collectors using polished dies and carefully prepared planchets. The result is a mirror-like surface with frosted design details. These coins were never intended for circulation and are usually preserved in protective holders from the moment they are issued. When a proof coin from 1978 survives in perfect condition, it becomes a beautiful example of mint craftsmanship. Collectors admire the sharp contrast between the reflective background and the frosted portrait of Roosevelt. For many people, the fascination with coins goes beyond money. Every coin is a small historical artifact that traveled through time. A dime minted in 1978 may have passed through countless pockets, cash registers, and vending machines before eventually being discovered by a collector decades later. Imagine the stories such a coin could tell. Perhaps it was used to buy a newspaper, pay for a bus ride, or rest in a child's piggy bank. Today it might be sitting quietly in a collection, appreciated not only for its design but also for the journey it has taken. Coin collecting continues to grow around the world because it combines history, art, and the excitement of treasure hunting. Even a humble 10-cent coin can inspire curiosity and passion when collectors begin to study its details, so the next time you see a dime dated 1978, take a closer look before spending it. Examine the edges, the lettering, and the shine of the surface. You might notice something unusual that turns an ordinary coin into a fascinating collectible. Top 3. Today we are talking about the United States 1 dime from 1983, a coin that at first glance looks ordinary, but for collectors it can become a very exciting discovery. The 1983 Roosevelt Dime is part of a long-running series that began in 1946 after the passing of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The coin was designed to honor him because of his leadership during difficult times and also because of his strong connection to the March of Dimes campaign. Since then, billions of Roosevelt dimes have been produced and most of them circulate quietly through everyday life without anyone paying attention to them. But 1983 was an interesting year in American coin production. During that time, the United States Mint was going through several changes in coin production methods and quality control. Because of these changes, some unusual varieties and errors began to appear, and these are the pieces that collectors search for today. The 1983 dime features the familiar portrait of President Roosevelt on the front of the coin. His profile faces left and the word Liberty appears along the left side. The phrase "I in God we trust" is placed just below the chin of Roosevelt, while the year 1983 sits clearly at the bottom. On most coins you will also see a tiny mint mark near the date which tells you where the coin was produced. The back of the coin shows a powerful symbol of American strength and unity. At the center you can see a torch which represents liberty and enlightenment. On each side of the torch are branches, One branch is olive, which symbolizes peace, and the other branch is oak, which represents strength and independence. Around the top edge you will see the words United States of America, and one dime appears at the bottom. Now here is where things begin to get interesting for collectors. In 1983, the Philadelphia Mint produced a large number of dimes. However, something unusual happened that year. Many proof sets were not produced in the same way collectors expected, and because of that, high-quality examples from regular circulation became surprisingly important for collectors who wanted well-preserved coins. Most 1983 dimes you will find today have been heavily circulated. They have scratches, dull surfaces, and worn details from years of use in vending machines, cash registers, and pockets. Because of this, it is actually difficult to find examples in extremely high mint condition. When collectors discover one with sharp details and brilliant luster, it can immediately attract attention. Another reason collectors carefully inspect 1983 dimes is because of mint errors. Mint errors are mistakes that happen during the coin-making process. These mistakes can transform a normal coin into a rare collectible that people are willing to pay much more for. One of the most famous errors collectors look for is the off-center strike. This happens when the blank coin planchet is not perfectly aligned during the striking process. As a result, part of the design appears missing while the rest of the design is pushed toward one side of the coin. When the date is still visible on an off-center strike, the value can increase dramatically. Another fascinating error is the double die effect. This occurs when the coin die receives a slight misalignment during the manufacturing stage. When that die strikes the coin, it can leave doubled letters or numbers. On a 1983 dime, you might notice doubling in the word liberty, in the date, or even in the motto "In God We Trust." These doubled features can sometimes be seen with the naked eye, but often collectors use a magnifying glass to confirm them. There are also coins with clipped planchet errors. In this situation, the blank metal piece that becomes the coin was not cut perfectly from the sheet of metal. This leaves a curved missing section along the edge of the coin. Although it looks like damage, experienced collectors know it is actually a genuine mint error, and such pieces can be very desirable. Another exciting possibility is the broad strike error. When a coin is struck without the collar that normally holds the metal in place, the coin spreads outward and becomes slightly larger and flatter than usual. The design appears stretched and the edge lacks the normal ridges. These broad strike coins stand out immediately and collectors love finding them. The mint mark is another important detail. Some 1983 dimes were produced in Philadelphia, while others were made in Denver. Denver coins carry a small letter D mint mark, while Philadelphia coins from that year usually do not display a mint mark. Although both types are common, finding them in exceptional condition is what really matters for collectors. When searching through rolls of coins, many collectors enjoy the thrill of the hunt. They carefully examine each dime under a light, rotating it slowly to catch the shine of the metal and the clarity of the design. Sometimes they discover coins that have been preserved almost perfectly for decades. Moments like that create excitement because even a small coin can turn into a valuable collectible. Another factor that increases value is the quality of the strike and the brightness of the coin's luster. A coin that still shows strong mint shine, sharp lines in the hair of Roosevelt, and crisp lettering will always attract more attention than a dull, worn example. Grading companies carefully examine these details before assigning a condition level to the coin. Collectors often store their best discoveries in protective holders to keep them safe from scratches, humidity, and fingerprints. Over time, these preserved coins can become more desirable as fewer high-quality examples remain available in the market. So while millions of 1983 dimes were produced, the combination of high-grade condition and mint errors makes certain pieces stand out from the rest. This is why coin collectors never ignore a small denomination coin. Even the smallest piece of change can hide a remarkable story. Imagine searching through a jar of old coins at home and suddenly noticing a bright 1983 dime with perfectly sharp details. Then you see a small doubling in the lettering or an unusual strike pattern. That moment could turn an ordinary coin into a collector's treasure. Coin collecting is not only about money, it is also about history, discovery, and the thrill of finding something rare in the most unexpected places. Every coin has traveled through countless hands, across cities and states, carrying a silent record of time. Now let us talk about the value that collectors care about most. A normal circulated 1983 Roosevelt dime usually has a value close to 10 cents to a few coins in dollars depending on its condition. A high-grade uncirculated example with strong luster and sharp details can reach several tens of dollars in the collector's market. And the most exceptional examples, especially those with rare mint errors or extremely high certified grades, have reached auction prices of several hundreds of dollars.